Good evening, everyone, from this amazingly beautiful planet Earth. This is Wild Rocket Health, here with you today on this glorious October evening. This is the 10th Awakening Anniversary video series, commemorating a whole decade of spiritual growth. 10 years ago, I underwent a near-death experience. In the midst of that, I had a very profound spiritual awakening. I came out on the other end of the NDE with an activated third eye and a completely renewed sense of life, awareness, and level of consciousness. This is the video series commemorating this spiritual awakening, and in a 33-part series I am explaining various important life lessons I have learned that have enabled me to become the strongest and most powerful version of myself, and hopefully I'm able to help other people in doing so. Today is part 27, Veganism and a plant-based lifestyle. I wanted to save this video towards the end because it's such an important aspect of my awakening process, and it's something which in my previous life I had very vague, subtle, below the surface hints that I should become a vegan and follow a plant-based lifestyle, but I didn't really pay attention to those signals until towards the end of my old life. Giving up meat and dairy and crucially adopting a rich plant-based diet full of leafy greens, fruits, a lot of hydration, a lot of water has made the difference in my health and my consciousness and my awareness. It has been absolutely transformative. There are a few reasons why I believe it is very important to stop eating meat and dairy and to eat more plant-based whole foods, raw as possible, fresh green salads, leafy greens, fruits, nuts and seeds. The first is related to the fear that is contained in the animal's flesh and its byproducts. Now, when animals are killed, they are always killed unwillingly. No animal wants to die to provide its meat. So what happens is that before the animal is killed and while it is being killed, even if the methods are humane and even if it doesn't go through a prolonged period of suffering, and then you've got like the halal tradition in Islam, which slaughters the animal quickly and it doesn't feel that much pain for that long as it's dying. Nevertheless, the animal knows that it's going to die, so even though it's not physically suffering, it still carries those fear in its genes, and that fear is stored in the animal flesh even after the animal has died. So when you are consuming animal flesh or its byproducts such as milk, dairy, butter, cheese, you are consuming the fear that the animal has been through, and that is going to affect your vibration. It's going to, whether or not you're conscious, it's going to generate more fear in your body. Doesn't mean that it's going to completely ruin your life, of course. There are many people who live healthy, powerful lives, even though they eat meat. However, it makes the capacity for feeling fear and for anxiety and the negative emotions much more likely if you are a meat eater than if you eat a more plant-based diet. So even though becoming vegan in and of itself is not enough to be completely healthy, it is a very, very powerful first step. The second reason is nutritional, and that is after the animal dies, even if you cook it and even if the meat is cleaned, even if you flavour it so it's technically hygienic and it's not toxic in a direct way, dead animal flesh has parasites which accumulate after the meat starts to decay. All animal flesh starts to rot as soon as the animal is dead. So even if you cook the meat and even if it's technically safe for consumption, there are still parasites that will remain in your gastrointestinal tract and which will lead to a compromised immune system and therefore makes you susceptible to all kinds of diseases. So that's the negative part of it. What can we do instead? Well, the good news is that nature is our teacher. We can get an ample amount of nutrients from plants, from fruits. Bananas are great for potassium, for protein. You've got almonds and walnuts, which are great for trace minerals, magnesium, calcium, iron, which can also be found in spinach, which can also be found in sesame seeds. Tahini or sesame seed sauce is great for that. The leafy greens I recommend a lot. Rucola, wild rocket, namesake of this channel. Shameless shout out, why not? Why not? Spinach is wonderful. Watercress, celery, very hydrating, high in natural sodiums. I highly recommend celery if you live in the West, so where you can easily get it. Here in Turkey, in the Middle East, we can't really get celery, but high chances are if you're watching this, you're probably in the UK or USA, which is obviously my target audience, given that I'm British and I'm a native speaker, and that's where my videos are more likely to reach. So celery is great. Figs are wonderful, very ancient fruit. We can get that here very easily. If you're in the West, dry figs are wonderful. Dates, daktyle, as they say in Polish, are wonderful. Tamar in Arabic, khurma in Turkish, are brilliant. So I highly recommend adopting a plant-based diet. And if you're attached to meat, I mean, I never had much of an attachment to meat anyway. Even in my previous life, I ate meat because I believed, like many people, we needed it for protein. We needed it to be strong. And even though I reluctantly ate it, I felt late down that it was kind of, immoral and somehow not right to eat it. But we don't actually need meat for protein. First of all, unless we're bodybuilding, we don't need that much protein anyway. But if you're concerned about that, spirulina, broccoli, avocados, almonds, walnuts, these are great sources of protein. Spinach as well. If you're attached to meat and it's hard to give it up, there are wonderful alternatives. I mean, soy was a traditional one. However, I recommend moving away from soy and more towards like the pea proteins and proteins made from hemp seeds or walnuts or nuts, sunflower seeds. Those are better sources of protein. Of course, soy can be something you can use as a backup, but even soy is not particularly healthy for you. I personally very rarely consume soy, only a couple of times a year if I'm out and about and I don't have much to eat, so I go and get a meat substitute. But in general, my diet is, I would say, 70 to 80% raw and then maybe 20 to 30% cooked. Chickpeas as well, which is the constituent of hummus, which has become very popular recently in the West. And obviously, if you're from the Middle East, you're very familiar with that. Chickpeas are great. Lentils are really wonderful. Quinoa as well. If you're a bodybuilder and you want to build high quality protein, I highly recommend a combination of quinoa, lentils, hummus, as my mum's side would say in Arabic, are high sources of protein. So veganism has been really, really key, and I have been feeling the call. I mean, just to give you a little bit more personal information, one of my very earliest memories, my mum would tell me when I was 4 or 5 years old, I would often ask her, like, Mum, why do we need to eat meat? This was a living thing and it died. Why should we eat it? It doesn't feel right. And then, of course, my very well-meaning mother, is just giving the answer that her parents would have given, or her grandparents, or her society. Oh, I know it's sad. And, to be fair, my mum did sympathise, but then it was like, but we need it for protein, to be healthy, to be strength, etc. And, as a kid, you just kind of believe that, and then you go along, you don't think to research. But deep down, I always knew it was the right thing to do. So after my spiritual awakening, giving up meat was just a natural thing. Once I adopted love as the source energy, just like giving up meat was just a natural next step to take. So veganism, adopt it, take it step by step. Even if you just eliminate meat and dairy and then cut back on meat, that's still a huge improvement. I recommend going all the way, 100% vegan, as much raw as possible, minimal cooked foods. If you can go 100% raw, I've done that before. That's great as well. Really, really wonderful. And yeah, thank you very much. This has been Wild Rocket Health here with you today. Part 27, veganism and plant-based. Cheers, guys.